Is it crunch time in the Championship? It's tight at the top in League One, and there's a massive match coming up in League Two. I'm David Currie. Join me on a journey beyond the Premiership. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. The news, the views and the analysis you need on Tuesday the 24th of March. Featuring Championship chat and a lowdown on Leagues 1 and 2. Will Partick Thistle pile the pressure on the Perth Saints atop the Championship? Well, the Jags have 2 games before Saturday. Can Ross County wriggle away from a relegation playoff? What's up at here? They've not won a league game since January. In League 1, Steny and the Cali Jags are still duking it out at the top. But can Hamilton hang on in there? Well, we're at it. Who's getting the final playoff place? And in League 2, there's a Spartans East Kilbride match, the clash of the Titans, a massive match. What do you make of this? There are 6 teams in the hunt for a final playoff place, but are Edinburgh City doomed for the drop? And will we cram all those talking points into this podcast? One thing's for sure, we'll give it a go.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Welcome one and all to the Scottish Football Podcast. Tuesdays are better with Flynn and Telfer. It almost rhymes. Our both Ryan Flynn and a view from the terrace, esteemed presenter, Mr. Craig Telfer. Good day to you, gentlemen. Another good weekend for Steny in League 1, Craig.
Yeah, it was a very good week. Very straightforward win over Kelty Hearts. Very professional performance. 2 good goals, one from Ross Taylor, one from Matty Aitken. But even better was news coming out from the Rex that Inverness were held 1-1 by Cali Thistle. It's very simple now. It's all in Stenismere's hands. Win every game between now and the rest of the season and you win the League 1 title. So it's just a brilliantly unexpected time to be following the football club.
Nice and straightforward then, eh? And Ryan, the Red Lichties lighten up the division with yet another win. The playoff place looms ever nearer.
Yeah, it was a great win, especially when probably those were doubting us. Some people on A View for the Terrace were back in Sean Crichton's Queen's Park, so it was a lovely sweet victory in the end.
You're not going to be having quotes from A View from the Terrace pinned up in the dressing room, Ryan, are you? Is that what's happening?
That was our motivation. Just a clip from someone on there back in Sean Crichton's side to get an away victory up at Gayfield. So that was all the motivation we needed.
Right.
That's show business. That is show business. It's an entertainment product. You're just trying to have a laugh.
Yeah.
Right, let's kick off with the Championship. It's the top, it's the tip, it's the Championship. You guys are too young to remember Top Cat, but I always like to get that one in. Used to have to be called Boss Cat in the UK for contractual reasons, but anyway, we move on. A curious situation. Partick Thistle have 2 games this week before leaders St Johnstone play. It's Raith Rovers for the Harry Rags tonight, Ross County on Friday. So, Ryan, the Jags could narrow St Johnstone's lead at the top of the table to 2 points before Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it is really exciting that way, and I hope it does become a bit of more of a title challenge. Sort of basing it off the Friday night's game, which was a little bit an anticlimax with 2 good footballing sides. You're really looking forward to it. You're thinking they're going to go toe-to-toe. It just didn't really deliver. I mean, the talent and ability on that pitch, even the style of play that both managers want to play, it's probably hard to tell from watching it on the TV recently, playing Partick Thistle. The pitch wasn't great. You can see it sort of bobbling about. It just brings a slower tempo to the match. And I think that was probably the main reason that the match didn't live up to the occasion, and probably resulted in the game looking for more set pieces. But Partick Thistle have still got opportunities. They're going to Raith Rovers tonight. Can they produce? Can they? It's those two games before St Johnstone play. Can they put the points on the board and just make St Johnstone think about going back to the Friday night's game? There wasn't much to talk about, but probably Jack Baird forgot that he was playing football at one point. An ex-teammate of mine, one aggressive player. I've been on the end of a few rough tackles for him in training, even the day before game when players do tend to take it easier. But yeah, it was Fitzpatrick was the end of an accidental elbow in the end. So yeah, it would be.
Sounds like an Arbroath game.
Yeah, so it was. It wasn't pleasant to see, but that was probably the only real talking point from the Friday night's game.
So these games, Craig, Tuesday, Friday, it won't make the Jags title challenge, but it could break it. Do you think they have to win both of them, really?
Yeah, I do think they'll have to win both games, but they're both presentable fixtures. You know, they're playing Wraith Rovers this evening. I'm going along to be my first trip to Starks Park, so I'm really looking forward to it. But Wraith Rovers are not in good form. I know they got a really good win against Airdrieonians at the weekend. I think that was a win that they really, really needed because there's a real danger of them getting sucked into serious relegation battle. And so to pick up 3 points there, it's kind of changed the complexion of the mood around Starks Park. But nevertheless, I don't think they're a particularly good side, Wraith Rovers. I think they're an ageing team. I think Dougie Emery's just really looking forward to getting to the end of the season to turn the team over. And then on the Friday night, you're playing against Ross County. And Ross County, a number of times that myself and Ryan have been in this podcast, they say, oh, maybe they've turned the corner. And no, they haven't turned the corner. And I think you saw the best and the worst of Ross County in that game against Dunfermline Athletic at the weekend, where they take a 2-goal lead and they're the better side against Dunfermline Athletic, but then just let the game slip away from them and concede quite a poor free kick from Callum Morrison, and they just turn off and allow Andy Todd to. I mean, it's a well worked goal, but quite sloppy from County's perspective. Allow Andy Todd to score to pull the game level. So that they're not a fantastic side, but so it's a good chance for Thistle. The only thing about Thistle is that they're really terrible luck with injuries coming into this run. Tory Watt's missing for the rest of the season. Logan Chalmers is missing for the rest of the season. Oisin Smith is missing for the rest of the season. And those are three of not just Thistle's best players, but three of the best players in the division. And I think if Mark Wilson can come from Friday night and have closed that gap to 2 points, I think it puts him in a lot of pressure in St Johnstone and a really interesting position. It's going to be difficult, but I think they might just have enough about them to get the job done in both occasions.
What are you thinking, Ryan?
Deep down, if I'm honest, I'm probably playing it down a little bit. I think it's probably cemented with St Johnstone being first place and Partick Thistle being second place. But for the title race, can Partick Thistle just ask that question of St Johnstone? That's probably what you want. And St Johnstone are definitely, without a doubt, the best squad, best players, playing the best football at times. I think that it's just because they look so solid, they never really look like conceding goals. And it's just that belief of other teams. Can they do enough to hurt St Johnstone to make them lose enough games? Probably not. But yeah, can Partick Thistle do something? It would be remarkable if they kept this title challenge up right towards the final games at the end of the season. And what a job overall Mark Wilson has done.
You agree with Craig, Ryan, when he's saying basically Dougie Emery is just all about surviving and getting to the end of the season and then rebuilding?
It probably looks that way. I mean, it was what you have to say. It was a huge result of the weekend, going a goal behind after Airdrie playing some wonderful football for Devine to score that goal. The players could have really crumbled there. Dougie Emery after the game was talking about the character the players showed, and that was in abundance to come back and then win the game. It looks like 3-1. It looks comfortable. It obviously definitely wasn't the case on the day. It just hasn't worked. For whatever reason, there is players there. There is good enough players. There is talented players. I remember playing against Wraith Rovers early in the season. Nisio in the middle of the park was phenomenal against us up at Gayfield. He was everywhere in the park, showing real quality at times, but then doing the ugly side of the game, doing the basics really well. And for a young player, it's sometimes quite rare to see. The plaudits were going his way after the game at the weekend, so it'll be interesting to see if he can kick on and be a real mainstay in that team and really drive them on between now and the end of the season.
You spoke there, Craig, about Ross County, so let's talk about them there. What are they on their third manager this season, something like that?
Yeah.
And, still, whatever they do, they don't seem to be able to gather any momentum.
Yeah.
Do you think that's partly down to the amount of managerial changes?
There's just been a fair degree of just like transience and instability at the club just over the course of the season. I think it might have been like a lot of people when I was checking the scores on the Saturday afternoon, you do when there's a break in play in your match and you're flicking through Flash Score and you see that Ross County have gone 2-0 up and thinking, oh, that might dent Dunfermline's promotion push. And I thought, well, no, it's Ross County actually. They've probably got a propensity to chuck this away. And that indeed proved to be the case. I think that in this match here, they were generally pretty good in the first half, and they were getting the ball up to Chikpezu and being able to play off from him. But in the second half, it just resorted to the players looked quite uncomfortable on the ball and began to play it long when they didn't need to play it long. They were just quite keen to get it away from them as far as possible, and they allowed Dunfermline back into the match. So it's something long thought about County. You never get too carried away when they pick up points or they win, because they'll just follow up next week with a defeat, and there's still a lot of work for Stuart Kettlewell to do to pull them out this tailspin. And I think that they would take ninth place, to be honest, if it was offered to them, because you don't really see them in a position to pull away from the sides at the bottom. I think they would, if you offered it right now, I think they'd take ninth place and see how they got on in the playoffs.
In the playoffs, well, let's talk about the promotion playoffs, Ryan, because Dunfermline 5 points clear of Ayr United, the Pars in fourth. United on a right miserable run, haven't won a game since the end of January. It's a winter of discontent at Somerset, if I can say that. But what's eating Ayr United?
It must be the $1 million question for Scott Brown at the moment. What I would say is his interview after the game, for a manager that must be feeling under pressure, and form really out the window there, he really backed these players there. He didn't really go for these players. I mean, I think he's obviously challenged these players, but he's not really had a go. He's backed them as in their ability, says how good they are. He likes them as a group. But I'd imagine he's stripped the paint off the walls within the dressing room and told them some real home truths behind the scenes. And I think that's quite good management. He's probably went in, had a go at them, but then he's been quite calm within that interview. And I think that'll hold in good stead between now and the end of the season.
Well,
when you play against Ayr,
that's interesting because, Ryan, it seldom seems to me, looking on these things from as an outside observer, that when a manager comes out and really tears a strip off his players in public, it never seems to have the desired effect. Or maybe it's just, I only remember the cases where it doesn't have the desired effect.
That's probably what I'm saying. I think behind the scenes he probably has had a go at his players, but then he's really backed and defended these players in the interview after the game. And I think as a player, Ayr seem to be very good at between both boxes. The football that they play, move the ball around, do create chances. They're just not ruthless enough, it seems to be, in both boxes. The game starts to go 1-0 behind. They probably dominate majority of the rest of the game and just don't create that real gilt-edged chance to peg Morton back. And I think for Scott Brown, the character he is, I could imagine he must be seething. But that's what I think, the big bit, that he just was quite calculated in a really difficult moment, and it might held him in good stead. It seems doom and gloom, but they are just a little bit behind the playoff hunt. Can they creep into the playoffs? Can they turn the season around? Of course they can. And I think perception can change very quickly in football. Probably Raith Rovers could be one. Doom and gloom, win at the weekend. Can they put a couple of wins together between now and Saturday? They could be the one right behind Dunfermline with a cup final to look forward to in the Challenge Cup final. So that's the bit how quickly football can change. Just get some points and wins on the board and the place lifts and the morale and can be changed within a heartbeat, really.
Scott Brown under a wee bit of P, Craig, sorry.
Yeah, well, I think I was going to say, though, that Ayr United are doing loads of great stuff off the park. I think it was yesterday they opened their new training complex. They've built this training complex just right next to Somerset Park. So when you take that and the new the main stadium stand redevelopment at Somerset Park, they're doing a lot of good stuff off the park. It's just they're not really keeping up with that on the park. And I do think that Brown's under a bit of pressure. I think it's difficult for someone like Scott Brown when you're so inextricably linked with a football club like he is with Celtic. I think there might be a perception from some Ayr United fans that they're always Scott Brown's Ayr United, if you know what I mean. That he is it's working at Ayr United with one eye on maybe like taking over Celtic some point in the future. And I think that some Ayr United fans maybe haven't bought into him from the start. And then when results aren't going well, that becomes another stick to beat him with. And I think when you hear the noise at the end of that defeat at the weekend there, you just the boos. I think there's just some people that are just had enough. So Scott Brown's got a really difficult job between now and the end of the season to try and convince the supporters he's the right man to take them forward. If he can somehow dislodge Dunfermline Athletic in fourth place, that would be terrific. But I was looking at the results. They've picked up the least number of points in the division over the past 10 matches. They've only picked up 8 points. And I think that they've got into a couple of players missing at the moment. But I just think that fans that would want this season to finish and maybe go for a change of direction in the summer.
Well, let's get the lowdown on League One then, folks. We'll talk about the title race. First of all, your chest will be swelling with pride, Craig. Yeah, there's a point in it at the top now, Inverness and your beloved Steny.
It's very, very good at the moment, very good. Steny took on Kelty Hearts at the weekend. Kelty, despite the fact they're bottom of the table, have proven to be stubborn opponents for Stennismuir in the past. They played each other at Ochilview a couple of months ago, and Steny had scored 2 goals late on to take anything from that match. Scott McGill scored a really nice goal late on to win it. But this game was more straightforward. Ross Taylor scored I'd say like a Zlatan Ibrahimovic-esque pivot and finish to open the score in early doors. And it was funny, like Stennismuir were the better team throughout, barring a wee 15-minute spell at the end of the first half. But the longer the game went on, you think, oh, we need to get a second goal here, because if Kelty score, then you're in danger of chucking it away. Ewan O'Reilly had a good header save. Gregory Buchanan put a header right at the goalkeeper. And then right at the end of the game, Ollie Simpson, a really good running cross from him. Taylor knocks it down and Matt Aitken finishes. So the 2-0 scoreline, I think, very reflective on the way the match played it and Stennismuir's performance. And it's just great fun at the moment. You know, this will sound strange, but in my head it feels like, well, Partick Thistle are ultimately going to win the title, so just enjoy it while you can. But the fact that we're at this stage of the season, coming into really the final straight, and we're still up there with them, I think that Steny can win it. I really do. I think Steny can go and win the league. I think I said we needed somebody to do us a favour. Alloa have done that. So it's all very much within our hands. It's great fun. Honestly, it's great fun. You're just going to the football every week and just enjoying yourself. It's very rarely happens supporting Steny. The last couple of years have been brilliant. So you're just going up there and you're just great to see this manager, great to see this group of players delivering week in, week out. It won't last forever, but I really hope it does, because it's magic.
That's an alternative perspective, Ryan. Football's fun. He's enjoying it. I mean,
it's probably nice to hear. Probably it must be it must be a different feel for you from the end of last season, the way Stennismuir it sort of changed towards the end of the season.
You're right, Ryan, because I think we came into that final quarter of the season, we're basically trying to stay in the top 4. We'd done a really good season. We're actually going neck and neck with Arbroath. We'd beaten Arbroath in February, and I think we'd gone top of the table by that point. And then just a really bad collapse of form meant we were hanging on to the final day of the season, and Alloa ultimately lost, and we finished in the top 4. But this time, like you say, it just feels different. Just feels different. There's a real good feeling around Ochilview at the moment. It's a lot of fun.
Right, time to bring him. He's flying too close to the sun. Time to bring him crashing down to earth. Ryan, I just want to know, Craig, are you worried already about keeping hold of the gaffer and the squad for next season?
You know, the squad, no, because most of the key players sign up. Michael Anderson signed a new contract yesterday. That's a really good piece of business. He's a smashing midfielder, and I think there's more to follow. So we've got a good core of players there. Ross Taylor, who I think a lot of clubs would be keeping an eye on, he's contracted for next season as well. So if he was to leave, it would be for money. But for Gary Naismith, yeah, you kind of wonder why he hasn't been approached for other jobs. You wonder if he is maybe like too unfashionable. You know, the fact that there's not many managers tend to go from part-time football into full-time football, that he's been overlooked in that regard. So I mean, I'm slightly disappointed for Naismith. You know, from purely selfish reasons, I'm pleased that he's stuck around. Just every time a new vacancy opens up somewhere, your chest tightens a little bit. But hopefully he's there to take us into the championship and the trajectory we're going on, probably Champions League football in the next 4 or 5 years.
He's a kind of mild-mannered, low-profile guy, Ryan, but got to remember this guy played at the very highest level in England and international football.
He did. He's been there and done it, that's for sure. And he's a manager, definitely. He's probably loving it as well as a manager. I mean, everyone at the Warriors at the moment just seems to be bouncing at the moment, and it's all credit probably to Gary Naismith, and he deserves all the credit that comes his way. And I don't see why someone wouldn't be looking at someone like Gary Naismith for the job he's done, created there. And as Craig's rightly said there, it's not a case of whatever happens this season, it's rip it up and start again. They have a core group there, and he's built something there that is sustainable over a long period of time, and he just can't find the extra few gems if they do leave to recruit again. So it's never really a massive job, whatever happens. So it is really a remarkable job he's done. I'm probably thinking back to when you said about Ross County being happy, maybe finishing ninth place. I think whoever finishes in the Scottish Championship ninth place will have a real tough ask of really surviving in the playoffs, because the teams that will end up in the playoffs look to be all thriving and hitting that League One playoff push with form. So it'll be a tough ask whoever ends up, because Stennismuir, Alloa are really flying at the moment in those positions.
Well, let's talk about so you're saying Stennismuir and Alloa nailed on. What about Queen of the South? Is that fourth spot? Is that theirs, do you think, Craig? I'm looking they're 5 ahead of Peterhead, 6 ahead of Montrose.
Yeah, I think it might be a wee bit too much for Peterhead and Montrose to close that gap. I think that 1-1 draw between those sides at the weekend kind of didn't really do anyone any favours, because Queen of the South are in pretty poor form at the moment. I think a couple of weeks ago they'd drawn 2 each with Inverness, Caledonian Thistle, and at that point you were wondering, can they really kick on and go and actually challenge for the title? But since then, I think they've won just the one match since then. And I watched Peter Murphy's post-match interview following that 2 each draw against East Fife, and let's be honest, it's not a particularly good East Fife team at the moment. They've not won a match in a long time. But Peter Murphy was complaining about refereeing decisions that hadn't gone their way. Back in that Cali Thistle game, he was saying that he'd been emailing the referees organisation looking for an explanation as to why they were given a penalty. And you're kind of thinking, if you're fixated on stuff that's happened ages ago, concentrate in the here and now. And I think that Queens will probably finish in 4th place, but I think that whoever finishes in 9th, I think they'll be quite comfortably dispatched. And it's just another season for Queens, if it's with that Peter Murphy or someone else, to just try and get out of this division at basically the 4th time of asking, I think it will be. I think they'll finish in 4th place, but I can't see them challenging for promotion ultimately.
Well, Hamilton are desperate to stay in that division. Having a wee look here, 3 points behind Cove Rangers, Ryan. They'll be ruined not beating Cove on Saturday. But whenever you look at their win rate, they've got 13 wins out of 30. Only, I think, Inverness and Steny have won more games in the division. So would you back them to get out of the mire they're in?
I have been. It's just the way it sort of slowly changes as games start to run out. I mean, I think they've got East Fife next Kelty Hearts. They've got, I'm sure, which is a game that they must win. And that's when it starts to become that they must win games when you're down at the bottom of the table. That's never pleasant, and that's difficult matches to handle. Deep down, do I believe they'll probably scrape out of that 9th place? Yes, I do. But it just comes on the back of with Cove changing their form around and really picking up. I mean, Chris Maguire inspired signing with a lovely, lovely free kick. The keeper had absolutely no chance, right in the top corner. What a massive goal, what a massive point that is for Cove, and then to take the 2 off Hamilton to really keep Hamilton within the mix. The one worry was always probably East Fife. They're the ones that totally out of form, felt like they're slipping down the table. It's just, can Cove and Hamilton accumulate enough points to really suck them in? Because I think if that does happen, I do fear for East Fife.
Finally, folks, League 2, and would you be hyping this one up too much, Craig, to say that this could be the most intriguing fixture of the weekend. Spartans at home to East Kilbride, maybe even the game of the season in League Two.
I don't think that's exaggeration at all to say it. I think that domestically, this is by far and away the most intriguing game that's taking place in Scotland this weekend. It's a real top of the table clash. In fact, I say it's a real top of the table clash. It's literally a top of the table clash. That was a really stupid thing to say. Sorry, but what I found really interesting, if you look across the four divisions in the SPFL. Hearts, there's a title challenge at the top of the Premiership, but Hearts have led the division since pretty much right at the start. In the Championship, St Johnstone have led the Championship right from the start. And in League One, Thistle have led the title from the start. Not in League Two, because those two teams have swapped places. They actually swapped places in midweek after the Spartans beat Forfar, but then they were held to a draw by the same team at Station Park. It's allowed East Kilbride to go top of the table. I think this is going to be a great game of football, a really, really good game of football. I'd say it's hard to call, but it's not really, because if we're going to look back at the previous meetings between the sides, they played each other 4 times, and the Spartans have won all 4 matches. I went to see the last meeting between the teams a Tuesday night at K Park. It finished 6-0 to the Spartans. Perhaps one of the most one-sided games that I've seen from any side this season. I thought the Spartans were tremendous that night. East Kilbride were really, really bad. However, the East Kilbride bounced back exceptionally well. They won 7 games in a row after that. The Spartans' forms faltered. So I think East Kilbride are perhaps the more entertaining of the two teams, but the Spartans are perhaps the more solid and they manage games really well, is what I'd say. They really know when the goalkeeper needs treatment or to maybe labour over a throw-in. All those kind of the dark arts that really wind teams up the wrong way. And if I had to pick, I think the Spartans will win this game, but I think they've got a greater propensity to lose to the teams that they should be beating compared to East Kilbride. So I think Spartans to win this one, to go back top of the table, but East Kilbride will ultimately run out as the winners of League Two.
Given everything Craig said there, Ryan, East Kilbride would be happy with a point in this one and keep them top.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I was thinking when Craig said that. The way that East Kilbride do handle all the other teams in League Two seem to be too strong for everyone. And the Spartans are their bogey team. That's the way it looks. I just think the amount of times we've tried to predict this season, we've been on this podcast and we've went, that's it. I think Spartans will do it. They're strong. They've got the know-how. They can beat East Kilbride. Spartans win the league. East Kilbride produce a run of results that get top of the table, and then you think, that's it. East Kilbride run away with the title. That's it. And then the Spartans start producing results and East Kilbride slip up. It's just been so topsy-turvy with the top 2 teams. They've lost every time to the Spartans. I'll go for East Kilbride to beat the Spartans just for pure chaos and the way that season's went.
It's quite happen sometime,
yeah, well, averages, I suppose.
It is a crazy division when you look at it, Craig. Forfar and 4th on 36 points. Mm-hmm. Dumbarton, the Sons of the Rock, 30 points, 6 points between them. I mean, you've got Dumbarton with a wee outside chance of getting into those playoff spots.
I think that, I'll be honest with you, Dumbarton's main priority is just to finish above East Kilbride. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Edinburgh City. That's their main priority, is to finish above East Kilbride, which could be mathematically possible in terms of goal difference. But if this weekend, depending on how results go, maybe. Sorry, beg your pardon, it's 2 weeks. Anyway, Dumbarton have been quietly very, very impressive over the last couple of weeks. That I think Frank McEwen, when he came into that job, replaced Stevie Farrell. He was Stevie Farrell's assistant and then gets the job. So fans are quite despondent. I think fans were looking for a complete change in direction. It's the assistant manager that gets the job. I think people are just expecting more of the same. But I think over the last couple of weeks, they've been really good. I went to see them, was it last Tuesday when they played against Stranraer? They beat them 2-0. And I think that they were pretty impressive in that match. They had an explosive start to the game and then held on when the Spartans came back into it. But I think that Dumbarton have signed really well. They've got a boy in the middle of the park called Alexander Smith, who they've taken on loan from Rangers. 17 years old, 5'4". He looks like a wee boy in there. But my goodness, what a player he is! What a player, central midfielder. Just that low centre of gravity, impossible to get the ball off, and he's very, very good at creating space for himself. Great range of passing, great set piece delivery. He set up the goal for Leighton McIntosh at the weekend. So Dumbarton are turning that season round. I think it would they would need something very special in order to finish in the top 4. It's not outside the realms of possibility. It does seem unlikely. But I think for Dumbarton, finish the season strongly and then kick on for next season. You know, they had their challenges this season. They began the season with a 5-point deduction following their administration. Finish the season in League One, consolidate and go again next season. But yeah, that's very difficult to call who's going to get that final playoff place.
Well, a couple of games tonight, Ryan, it'll maybe make things a wee bit clearer. Elgin 4 for Stranraer Clyde.
Yeah, I mean, that's all for the playoff run-in. Trying to predict it's really difficult. Elgin's, obviously, they had a massive result at the weekend, a 3-0 victory against Edinburgh City. I actually don't know who to predict who's going to be the teams that will end up in the playoffs. Forfar, obviously, had a second go at Spartans and managed to get a point. It's going to be a tough ask. Who's going to get over there? It's just a bit of a shame with all the points deductions within that league. They all took it away, how tight it really would be between all those teams from, what would it be, 4th all the way down to the bottom of the league. It would be so tight, even tighter than it is. Even Edinburgh City would be in the mix. It's so hard to call, but it's exciting at the same time, and it'll be interesting to see who can produce that run of results to hold it together to get that playoff push. What I would say is I think it's probably the end of the road for Edinburgh City in League 2, barring staying up in the playoff game.
Well, it's the end of the road for us this morning, gentlemen. That's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Craig and Ryan, and of course, most of all, to you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. And until we speak again, in the spirit of Craig Telfer, have fun.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the sorer obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing, you know.
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is, you know.
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a bomb app. A bomb app.
Look at the bomb app.
Well, what we normally do is spin the bomb app and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.